Hassan Abdelal, Egypt, Southern University. I come here for a program of MBB, and I'm very interested with that section because it's relating of my study. Also, I come to know more about it and come back to my home with good benefits about the public policy. Thank you.
I am Mr. Bandari Netra from Nepal. I'm a student here just now joining MPP program. And that's why I chose this topic.
My name is Tongkam. I'm from Laos. I'd like to study now we are studying the MPP program, and I'd like to know about the public policy.
I'm Netra Paudel from Nepal. I'm working from Ministry of Finance, Nepal. I'm also a student of MPP program in Peking University.
Hello, I am Sunil Bodhivansa from Sri Lanka. I am studying the MPP program at the Peking University. I think studying policy, it is important that the strategies, how to apply those strategies for the policies.
I'm Shinji Nakabayashi from the University of Tokyo. I'm from the government, seconded to the university. I'm from Ministry of Finance.
Thank you. I'm Tsafak from Cameroon. I'm running a program called Economic Policy Management Program. And I'm very interested about what you called here globalization strategies. I'm asking myself, what does it mean?
Paul Seka Saba from Côte d'Ivoire, Université de Cocody. I am the director of economic policy management of Côte d'Ivoire, and this globalization strategy interests me.
I'm Jim Wilburn. I'm Dean of the School of Public Policy at Pepperdine University in California. We're a relatively new program, and about 40% of our students major in international relations, and about 20% are from outside the United States. And we have 5 campuses outside the United States, including one in Shanghai. So we're increasingly attempting to think in terms not of U.S. versus international, but global. And this is my brother Bob, who came along just because he wanted to come to Beijing. He's from the foreign country of Texas.
Morning, my name is Cedric Dupont. I'm from Graduate Institute of International and Development Studies in Geneva. I'm head of the Master Program International Affairs as well as of Executive Education, which we just founded. I'm here because I think we're mostly regional or North Atlantic in terms of students' body, and we have a hard time to compete with US and UK university to attract Asian students. So any solution to be more global and less North Atlantic would be welcome.
I'm Kirsten Gronberg on the faculty at the Indiana University in the School of Public and Environmental Affairs, and also at the Center on Philanthropy. And Indiana University have very extensive relationships with a number of institutions in Asia, in Europe, and increasingly as well in Africa and Latin America. So we are concerned about how to manage those relationships and how to develop selectively in areas. We obviously can't do everything, and so we are interested in the strategies.
I'm Susan Collins. I'm the Dean of the Ford School of Public Policy at the University of Michigan. The University of Michigan has a large and growing number of international connections and partnerships. The Ford School actually has relatively few, and we're interested in exploring what some of the best strategies are from our perspective. many of the things, if not most of the things that we're doing, increasingly involve using technology in innovative ways, and so it seems, from my perspective, to make a lot of sense to think of those international globalizing and the role of technology together. So I'm curious to hear the way that schools that are perhaps more actively engaged in those are using them in a combined way.
Hi, I'm Tom Christensen. I represent the Wilson School at Princeton University. And I came to this session because I thought my dean would want me to come to this session. She sent me here. But I also see that Donna Liu is here, who knows much more about this topic than I do, and she also represents our school. So I might actually run upstairs. The reason I thought she would want to be a part of this session is something that Donna can talk more about, is that we're involved in something called PolicyNet, which is a internet program for various policy schools, and we have programs online, and people can participate in that way. And Donna runs that and knows much more about it than I do, so I will stand down and I will go upstairs.
I'm Alan Fells, Dean, Australia and New Zealand School of Government, which is a joint venture of the governments of Australia, New Zealand and all the state and territory governments, plus about 15 leading universities, Melbourne, ANU, etc. And we train senior public servants. We have an executive master of public administration, various executive ed. 5 years old, we're swamped with local demand. We have a couple of international programs. One is a specific 3-week program, although with a year's work attached, for about 13 Pacific Island nations. We have another one for Indonesia. We are interested in starting to do a bit more internationally.
I'm Kent Weaver from Georgetown University. I manage our international partnerships. We currently have 6 international student exchange partnerships, 3 in Asia and 3 in Europe. I'm particularly interested in the use of technology for things like distance learning. Just tell you something I'm personally involved with, I teach comparative policy process and comparative public management. And I've discovered that with PowerPoint, you can attach audio to your slides and actually have all of your lectures be available on Blackboard so that students can listen to them in advance of the class. It saves class time for discussion, and it's terrific for foreign students whose first language is not English, and they can listen to these over and over again if they have to until they feel that they've fully absorbed it. So that's one of the new technologies we're working with.
I'm Isabel Rousseau from El Colegio de México. I'm working as a professor in the International Studies Center of El Colegio de México, and I'm teaching in the underdegrees and master in politics and public administration. In El Colegio de México and in this center we have developed many partnerships with many programs in Europe and United States and Canada also, and all the rest of Latin America. And the partnership is more or less on research, and we are more national on concerning questions of teaching. So I'm quite interested to know more about how to develop international practices on teaching, for instance.
Hi, I'm Saad. I'm a student at the LKY school. I'm an MPP student. I was actually interested in both the sessions. I couldn't decide between the two, so I decided I'll just come and sit in both of them for a little while. Thanks.
I'm Tarun Sharma from LKY School of Public Policy. I also was in a kind of same dilemma, and I wanted to know more about the first session. So I'm here just to understand, and I probably would run out to the other session now.
Hi, I'm Jonathan from Singapore, LKY SPP. I realized that this is actually a session for public policy schools, and as students, I think we should be going up soon. Thanks.
My name is Donna Liu. I'm Director for Strategic Initiatives at the Woodrow Wilson School at Princeton University. And that means essentially two projects that leverage the World Wide Web for extending the reach of the school and its research. One of them, which Tom already referred to, is PolicyNet, which is entering into a partnership with GPPN. PolicyNet is a digital platform much like a Facebook, but it is restricted to the public policy world. So you can sign up, create your profile, and then share your research, your resume, your job openings, whatever it is you want to share, with a self-selecting public policy group. There are already 8 schools belonging, including Beida, Tsinghua, Princeton, and GIIS, Hertie. So I would, if anyone is interested in more details on PolicyNet, I'm happy to provide them. The other project we run is called U-Channel. It's another consortium of public policy schools. It takes the public affairs lectures at these schools, recordings of these, digitizes them, makes them available as podcasts, video podcasts, YouTube, embedded videos, iTunes U. I mean, if you want to get your talks out into the public domain, U-Channel is an excellent avenue for that. If you don't want it to be available to the entire public, then don't give it to us, because anyone can access our materials for free from anywhere in the world. So I was interested in this session because it dovetails very nicely with my work.
Hi, I'm Pat Dunleavy from I'm the director of the MPA program at the London School of Economics, and I'm here because I need to know all about this stuff. We are just we have 2 MPAs at the moment, one in economics and one in public management. We're just starting a new one in international development and another one in European public policy.
My name is Satoshi Watanabe. I'm a dean of International and Public Policy School of Hitotsubashi University of Japan. Well, our school have different programs. One is for international students taught in English, and the other for Japanese or Japanese-speaking international students for taught in Japanese. And I'd like to kind of integrate these courses and make students, particularly Japanese students, exposed more international experience. And I'd like to learn how to use information technologies for that kind of purposes, and I'd like to listen to your experience. Thank you.
My name is Jennifer Bremer. I direct the master's program in public policy and administration at the American University in Cairo, and which is a private university established in 1919. The MPA program dates from the mid-70s. And I am interested in being in this session because we are developing it now into a public policy program. Probably will have 2 degrees in a couple of years. We very much want to develop a network of public policy students, and schools were the first MPP in the Middle East. So I think there's real value both in networking within the region, within Africa, and also more generally to give our students a broader experience and to bring people to the region.
I'm John Thomas from the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard, also with historic links to the National University of Singapore. The Kennedy School is the most international of the various schools at Harvard in that 45% of our students are from outside of the United States. On the other hand, the Kennedy School has been fairly cautious about international linkages and the kinds of programs that are very prevalent among the participating institutions here. I'm interested in some degrees pushing the Kennedy School for a little bit more of this, but I picked this session because I thought it sounded more interesting than the other one.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sayasat Nurbek. I'm from Kazakhstan. I'm a Vice Rector of the Academy of Public Administration. This year, we are starting our very first National Public Policy School jointly. It'll be a joint project with the LKY SPP. So I'm here to absorb the experience, to strategic initiatives and ideas. It's very crucial for our country. And this year, the competitiveness index of Kazakhstan dropped by 6 points, and the main criteria, at least what set the rating set, was the lousy public administration. So the president got furious. He said, we have to do something. And said, well, let's set up a public policy school. And they picked me, and I'm responsible for establishing a school. And through the personal friendship and acquaintance of Viktor, we know it was his expertise and his views. I think we picked up. Okay, he knows that. Okay.
Hello, I'm Andrei Silantiev from Moscow State University for International Affairs. We teach everything international. It's international relations, international law, international business, economy, international journalism. And although every sixth student at our university is a foreign student, these come mostly from former Soviet Union republics, and Kazakhstan students are the biggest foreign group at our university. We are looking for partnerships with other universities and mostly Western universities. We do have many agreements, but we want to expand. And from international, we want to move global. That's why I'm in this session.
My name is Robin Lewis. I now live and work in Beijing, but until last year, and for the 22 years before that, I was Associate Dean of the School of International Public Affairs at Columbia, or SIPA, and I was the first Executive Director of GPPN, so I'm still very much involved in the field. I came here because I thought Viktor wrote a very stimulating paper that raised a lot of issues that schools that are in the public policy sphere are thinking about. And I would just, maybe as a way of thinking of kicking off the conversation, observe that the kinds of technological resources that Viktor pointed to have had different trajectories in our experience. I would say in some ways, although there's more work to be done in all of these, the problems presented in collaborative faculty research are the most straightforward. I would say that those next in teaching present harder challenges, collaborative teaching. And then there's a third area that I think we should also talk about, and I'm very glad that there are some public policy students from both BEDA and LKY here. Don't run away just yet if you haven't already run away. Some of them have disappeared. And that's in the area of student-run projects. That is, I would observe from my experience that even schools like SIPA and the other schools that have been at this for a while, we're probably the oldest, we haven't done enough to engage the broader student body. That is, not the students just involved in the dual degree programs, but the broader populations of our school who are not likely to travel to another campus during their experience. They're not going to do a dual degree, but we need to think of a way to engage them and to create, and to use technology to create more communication among the broad student bodies in the masters, at the master's level. I think we've already made some progress, and we'll hear this afternoon from some of the programs for PhD students. But I think there's a challenge for the professional master students.
Good morning. My name is Masahiko Takeda. I'm with Hitotsubashi University of Japan, Asian Public Policy Program, or APPP, which is a branch of the School of International and Public Policies, whose dean is over there, my colleague Mr. Watanabe. I'm here because in addition to teaching economics, I'm in charge of IT in my program. So I'm particularly interested in this program. And just an example of our IT-related activity, we recently introduced APPP community website, which is only for students, alumni, and faculty. And we believe that graduation is not really the end of education, and certainly not the end of our relationship with students. So, and our students are entirely from abroad, Asian students. They come from various agencies, central banks, Ministry of Finance, and they go back to their home agencies. And we would like to help them advance their career once they go back. And they may have questions, issues, and they can send their questions, etc., on this website, and the faculty is ready to respond. And so that is one way, I think, a very interesting way to use IT, which we have been so far reasonably successfully operating. So I'm happy to talk about it if others are interested in this. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Lajos Bokros. I am a professor of economics, finance and public policy at Central European University, which is a small private American university in Budapest, Hungary. This university is very international. We have students from more than 100 countries all over the world. Only 5% of our students come from Hungary, actually. So internationalization is already there. What is missing is exactly the public policy school. We have only something what we call a public policy department, where I also teach. But we have now a very ambitious plan to establish a school of public policy in Budapest. You may know that Central European University was established by Mr. George Soros 17 years ago, 18 years ago. And now he has earned probably too much money during the financial crisis to establish yet another school. So I am interested in starting this process and get networking. Thank you.
I'm Giovanni Valotti and come from Bocconi University. Bocconi University is the leading university in Italy, and I'm the dean of the undergraduate school, and I'm the director of the master division at the School of Management. Our portfolio of masters consists of 20 different programs. 10 of them are international programs, and 2 of them are focused on the public sector. We have 2 different masters. The first one is the MPM, that is Master of Public Management, and the second one is the MIMEP, Master in International Healthcare Management and System. And I think that they are 2 successful programs. The first one started 5 years ago, and the second one 10 years ago. So I'd like to know what's happening in the other schools. Okay.
I'm Mohammed Lahwal. I'm Associate Dean for Academic Affairs at the Dubai School of Government. The Dubai School of Government was established in 2005, so it's a recent creation in coordination with the John Kennedy School of Government at Harvard. Our objective is to become the public administration school in the MENA region. We are counting on attracting students from all over the Arab world. And so far we have run a graduate executive diploma with the Lee Kuan Yew University. And we are starting in January our own Master in Public Administration. And hopefully in 2 years we'll start also a Master in Public Policy. I'm here, of course, to benefit from the advantage of being latecomer here. We are trying to benefit from the experience of other public administration schools and interact with them. Thank you.
I think we've covered everybody, I hope. Okay. Okay. Good. Well, they say so, then I'll do that. Patrick asked me... Patrick asked me to use a couple of minutes before we delve into the discussion to sort of rehash what I said in my paper in shorter sentences and using less long words, a few long words. I'll try to do that, although it's a challenge for me being a Germanic speaker. What I was trying to explore in my paper was the challenge that and the opportunities that we have as public policy schools operating in a global network. That's what GPPN is all about. So I was less interested and less focused, I have to be honest, with the use of information technology in each of our schools, and how we can broaden and how we can facilitate the use of technologies. I was more focused on what value does the global network add, and what particular opportunities does the global network provide us to combine with information technology to create competitive advantages. And here's where I was coming from. I looked at the landscape of public policy programs around the world, and basically what we see is that they're mushrooming. There are more and more public policy programs coming up every year, not just internationally, but also when you look at the United States, when you look at European countries. If that's the case, okay. If that's the case, then what we ought to look at in the relatively near future is for competitive advantages to differentiate ourselves from the rest of the many public policy programs that are out there. Because at the end of the day, they're all vying for public policy students to come and to attend the programs. Now, some, of course, have captive audiences. If you are the only program in Kazakhstan, then perhaps you can catch 80% of the market or 90% of the market. But then there might be another program coming up in a country, or people might go abroad, for example, to the Moscow State University and study there if they're from Kazakhstan. And immediately we have then a little bit of a competition going on, and the question then therefore is, can a network provide, a public policy school network, provide some competitive advantage in order to gain an edge in that competitive setup? And both to attract students, good students, the students that we like, but also to attract faculty, which is one of our scarce resources as well. And to attract students, I should say, students in two tracks. The graduate degree program students, PhD students, but as well as the executive education program students. And then, so students, faculty, and then, of course, can it help us enhance our image and our voice that we have in the public debate, both domestically and globally. Let me go back and talk a tiny little bit about my last 10 years at the Kennedy School. John Thomas alluded to that beforehand. Harvard's Kennedy School is very international, but at the same time it doesn't have many links. And so you would think with the cachet and the brand name of Harvard, it might be extremely easy to attract students, and to both on the degree program side and on the executive education side. The truth is it's getting harder. The truth is it's getting harder on the degree side, basically because there are other enormously interesting, good, stimulating schools around the world that might even offer better financial benefits and better financial packages in terms of scholarships. And in terms of executive education, the truth is that, yes, you can come to Cambridge, Massachusetts, but you pay a lot of money. And it's not just because Harvard is expensive, but it is also because it is in the United States, where just the cost of accommodation and travel and so forth has to be factored in. So it's a relatively high cost proposition. And in some ways or another, it might be cheaper for a group of Dutch public policy officials to go to London and get an executive education program there than to go to Cambridge, Massachusetts and get it there. So in other words, even those that think that they're relatively insulated in the and have a very valuable brand are still sensing more and more of those competitive dynamics out in the market. And so the question is, what can a global public policy network do? Is there any value that a network can provide those that are part of the network in order to facilitate competitive advantage? That was where I came from. And perhaps before delving into the technology question and what sort of a role of technology could play there, could we take that kind of proposition, because it's a completely unproven proposition, it is completely intuitive and not empirical. Could we perhaps debate that for a second and see whether that is something that resonates with you, or whether you have very different experiences from your vantage point, and try to come up with perhaps a bit of a consensus of where we're headed.
I noticed during day one, because I was taking notes and I did blog day one on PolicyNet, that a theme that kept coming up again and again was that part of the cause of a number of these crises is the inability to share information across borders. And I think one of the things that, if we want to train a generation of effective public policy people, that should be included in that training is the ability to share information across borders. The web obviously presents a very easily at hand tool to do that, and I think the question is whether the inability to share is nature or nurture. Because public policy schools so far have not delved too far into the sharing of information across the web, I don't think we know the answer to that yet, but I think it's certainly worthwhile, and I think the schools owe it to the students to take them down the path of information sharing across whatever technological platforms exist at the stage of their training, and hopefully it would be something that they carry over into when they become policy makers and practitioners.
Can I ask you to do me a favor? When you take the microphone, just stand up. I'll come over here so that everybody can focus, so that you just don't talk to me, but talk to the audience.
Yeah, I wouldn't frame it so much in terms of comparative advantage, but just in terms of offering a better education to students. I think there are enormous opportunities through the partnerships of all the schools here, and each one is going to develop sub-networks within those to improve the quality of education for students. And just to give you an example of one thing we're talking about with the Hertie School, of actually offering a course that would be in real time, half the students from Hertie, half the students from Georgetown, interacting over live internet video, and then having the professor go back and forth once or twice during the semester, having students work jointly on projects, which clearly directly requires those students to work across national boundaries in their project. So I think there are just enormous opportunities. I think we shouldn't worry so much about whether we get an advantage over other schools. It's whether we provide a better education to our students.
Thank you. More reactions? Yes.
I think the previous speaker made a very important point. If the objective is getting competitive edge or establishing brand image, you want to be restrictive and exclusive to a certain extent. Once you are in, and you get the brand image. But then you want to exclude others. But if the purpose is to improve education, the information sharing should be as wide and open as possible. And I see both possibilities, and I'm curious to know whether whether you are talking really about networking as a brand establishment or networking for the purpose of education. Maybe you don't really have to be one or the other, but depending on which way we go, our strategy can be, or our discussion itself can be very different.
That's a very good point.
Let me take the devil's advocate position for a minute. As I said, Kennedy School does not have joint degree programs with others, and I think the question that keeps coming up, I found myself on the other side of the argument favoring it, but the question that keeps coming up is, how do you maintain quality? If several schools have
are participating in the grading, concerned about quality standards. Is there a problem in terms of ensuring that somebody that gets a degree from your university has the quality education that you are happy to have your imprimatur on? There are clearly arguments that say that the opportunity to go and study in other countries is educational in itself, and I agree with that. But I do want to at least raise that quality issue because it does. I don't hear it mentioned at all. I haven't heard it mentioned in this day in a quarter or so, and I think it is something we do need to keep in mind as well.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I totally agree with John that quality is important, and I just think you need to be careful and selective in the partners you choose, and don't have too many. I think that that's probably the key thing. You can probably manage, 5 or 6 partnerships. You get beyond that, and the cost of making sure that quality control is there get really high.
Sure. I guess I'm the odd one out here because I'm a student of public policy at Lee Kuan Yew School, and I went back to studying after 10 years practicing as a legal consultant. What I feel is the globalization and the information flow is great, but the frustration that I study at Lee Kuan Yew School, and when I think we have a tie-up with the Harvard School. And a lot of students in the public policy classes feel a sense of disconnect and a slight frustration because all the case studies are from the Kennedy School of Government, are essentially American, and they find it very difficult to relate to it because the systems are different, the way the governments work is different. The way we devise solutions in different countries like India, Singapore is in that sense more aligned to the US way of thinking. So when we see these case studies and when we read these books, there is a slight disconnect among students of the MPA who have already over 10 years of experience in the government sector. So the partnerships are great, but I think we should also involve a little bit of domestic or local experiences or flavors of government.
There's so many things to respond to because I think all the comments have been very relevant. I'll maybe play off of a few of them. I think you're right. In the early days of the GPPN, one of the discussions was about trying to create a broader range of case studies from countries and regions that and from systems that haven't normally been included in that. And it's not that people aren't interested in it. It just there have been other things that the network has set its mind to initially, which are of great value as well. I think Kent is right in saying that we need to focus always on the quality of education that's being provided. But one of the things that's exciting about the public policy field is that all of these different goals, from the most parochial, the kind of market issues that we talk about. Everybody here has deans and budget directors and people saying you've got to get more students. But that will happen if we devise collaborative means to really to explain to the world what public policy and public policy analysis skills really are. This is a relatively new field. It's an inherently interdisciplinary field, and in a lot of countries, there's not a great understanding of what this field is. So there's a great deal of work we can do together to promote public policy as a venue for innovative solutions. We talked. This was a theme, of course, yesterday. Capturing the attention of governments and other stakeholders in the global system who are looking for solutions, but who, I'm sorry to say, don't often think of public policy schools as the place to go. I think we can, if we keep in some sense, the convergence of those goals we all have, and how we can make them strengthen each other, I think that will be very good. And that includes, again, it goes right back to the original point, to students, to engaging the broader number. It's always, in all of our institutions, there will always be a limited number of students who will be able logistically in their personal lives to be able to go and do dual degrees. At Columbia, we always had this dilemma. We're in New York. Students say, "Oh, I've come for 2 wonderful years in New York," and it's awfully hard to lure them away to fantastic cities like London, like Paris, like Singapore, like Beijing. So there's the broader constituency, and it includes all of you who are here at Beidan, at LKY, of public policy. Your fates are all linked together in trying to build public policy into a stronger voice. And that's something we should think about, how to use technology to do that.
Thank you very much. Let me take the opportunity also to respond directly. I think you asked me for my views on that as well. It seems that there are two themes or sub-themes emerging here. One is that we need to use the network information technologies and so forth to go out and enhance our reach-out capacities, to engage the public, the politicians, the public sector in a dialogue, so that they come more often and more frequently to us, public policy schools. And that is a way by which we give away information. We are not after the market share, we are after the mind share. And that is something where we utilize the information technology to disseminate information more effectively than we do now, perhaps more targeted than we do now, with the help of these tools. But then there is a second theme that I hear, and that is we do also offer education. And for most of us, we offer education for a hefty fee. And that hefty fee guarantees a certain quality of the educational experience. Now, if we start giving away that education or parts of it for free, then we have the free rider problem. And we need to be aware of that. To what extent do we permit that to happen? Or is the educational good a good that, by and large, we keep confined to a relatively exclusive set of those that we accept as students, those that we admit as students, either executive or graduate degree programs, and give away, as Donna explained earlier, sort of the public lecture side of Princeton. Now, keep in mind that there are other universities who have gone way the other way. MIT is one of the most impressive examples that where they have made available classical degree program courses on the web, free for everybody to download. And their OpenCourseWare initiative is a remarkable step towards creating a public good that used to be an exclusive good. So there is a debate to be had, I think, on how far we want to go on the educational side. But that, I think, is somewhat separate to the dialogue side that we have with the public officials, with the politicians. And with respect to the quality issue, I think there's also an important element here in the debate that I'd like to focus on, if you permit me for a second, and that is one way by which we can maintain quality is by creating a network of trusted partners. Because if you have 4 institutions, let's take the example, the LSE, Sciences Po, Columbia, LKY, SPP, then they all were able to agree on a joint or a dual degree program based on the fact that they vetted each other and said our quality standards are comparable. And so the network is a shorthand, if you want, for quality, which, by the way, brands often are, sometimes erroneously, but often are. So if you like, then should we tackle the educational experience side of these and talk about how much or how little of our educational experience we are willing to and we think is fruitful to open up and to make accessible to a broader audience using technologies? Because the technology part is a relatively smaller part. The more fundamental question is whether or not we want to go that route. Wouldn't you agree, Donna?
Well, I think we are the only programs in which the word public is actually part of the, name of what it is we're trying to teach. And if that is so, there has to be an element in our program which involves the public, or else it becomes a completely top-down, policy process, which is not necessarily the most successful, and not one that most of us would be trying to teach our students. So if we are willing to sort of take the risk, and it's all about risk, and the more risk, the more benefit, but if we're willing to take the risk of letting things, bubble up from unexpected places, then we have to take down at least 20%, 40% of the garden wall in order to create a learning environment where the students have that kind of contact with the public, which will be required of them when they graduate and they go into the workforce.
So there's the gauntlet, 20 to 40%.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about it from the other side. We are very concerned about quality, but I think we need to be frank that when you move away from the elite Northern European and American schools to the schools in the Middle East and Africa and so forth, there is a quality problem. Our students are not as prepared. They're not as quantitative in their background. Their economics is not as strong or non-existent. And therefore, it is difficult to say that our students could participate, frankly, at the present time in programs that are more rigorous as we would like to be. But I think there is real value in creating a program for countries that really are going through the early stages of the development of regulators. For example, Egypt just established the first regulator, 3 or 4 years ago. So it is there are challenges and there are things to be learned. And for students who want to work in development, and I know that's a significant share, although probably not the majority by any means, but still a significant share in most of the schools. That for students who want to work in that field, that you can't just do Paris and New York and Cambridge. You really have to interact with people who are professionals and who come from a very different background and maybe be exposed to some different problems and not always have the data neatly available, because the data is not going to be neatly available when you go to the field. So I think there's something as to what constitutes quality, what do we have to bring to the table, and how can we provide a good learning experience not only for our students but potentially for people coming to do a project or coming to do a couple of courses. But I think we need to recognize that there is a real need to develop the field, and this is more speaking perhaps to the first question than the second as well. But that there is value, but how can we ensure that there's value for both sides of the transaction?
And I really encourage everybody to participate in this dialogue. I know that there are a number of people who have spoken more than once now. I'd like to also bring others into the dialogue as well.
Yeah, I'll try not to speak after this time. I think that there's a middle road between the sort of MIT open courseware approach and the more exclusive approach. I had dinner with Sayasat last night, and he said our biggest problem is lack of teachers, lack of teaching personnel. I think that schools that have developed this capacity, working in partnerships with institutions, particularly in the developing world, can play a role that would be extremely productive in terms of providing teaching over the internet in terms of courses that that are filmed or PowerPoint or whatever and deliverable, and then working with the teachers in the local markets to provide things that add on to that provide the discussion and et cetera locally that could be a terrific help in the developing world.
Yeah, go ahead.
Coming back to the issue of private versus public good, to some extent, by opening up some of the courses, the web forces us to be better on the rest. So you can always basically differentiate yourself on what is really based at the local level. Second, I don't think we are, unless we create, thousands of new university each day, we have a wide public, so the market is still very big. So you can still say by being competitive, but you can attract more and more students, particularly if you think of countries like China, India. So we can think of ourselves being more competitive towards each other, but we have a pretty wide potential to tap. So, and I think, speaking from our school, there's limits on how many students we can get. Because unlike in Beijing or Singapore, building a new building in Geneva takes about 20 years. So I'm just, I have to cap the number anyway. So in that sense, you're right, there's this tendency between the private and public good, but I think the public good aspect should actually win over, because it's more win-win situation if we really manage it carefully than a kind of, a zero-sum game, I would think.
Let me bring up executive education in addition to the degree program education for a second. We talked about degree program education just now. Does that play out similarly in your view in the executive education realm? Also, keep in mind, perhaps if you think about it, that a lot of times executive education programs have a locational component that is very important to them. So either the executive education target audience wants to remain where they are, so you do a program, let's say in India, and you go to India, or they don't want to be where they are. That is, they want to be outside of their context and come to Cambridge, Massachusetts, or Singapore, and that is a significant component of the setup. So, in your view, does that play out similarly to degree programs? Should we be as open-minded and public, perhaps even more public, because we engage a public audience? We also have a public value to fulfill there, or less so because it is, after all, a moneymaker to an extent? How do you draw the line there?
That's what happens when you just raise your eyebrows. Somebody makes a comment. It seems to me the big difference is that executive education is fairly short term, and most programs are 1 to 2 weeks. Some go as far as 4 weeks, but so there really isn't time to move around. I think this is a case where technology can enhance them. You can bring high-level speakers into the classroom from elsewhere through video conferencing, and so there's lots of opportunity there. But I see the executive education as a much more location-specific, and to be slightly frivolous about it, we are right now engaged in executive education with the government of India, which I suspect you had in the back of your mind when you said that, which we do in India every year. It has been very difficult because the government of India has specified that specific batches, their top batches will come. The batch of 84, for instance, was last year. So we go into that environment, and people are, one, because they're batchmates, they're much more interested in impressing one another than they are in effectively participating in the learning process. Two, they're pretty skeptical that somebody from Harvard University has anything to teach them when they're so senior and have so much experience, and there's a fair case to be made for that. We have found it much easier when executive education comes to Cambridge because in one sense we have them in our grips, but they're in a different environment that's very different than our usual environment. And then there's what I call somewhat facetiously the T-shirt effect. You could go get a Harvard T-shirt, which you then can wear proudly for for some time into the future. But I think executive education is different in that it is short-term, very concentrated.
My experience with executive education has also been that if you do an off-site executive education program somewhere in India, for example, for an American university, it is very hard to bring in American professors, teachers, because those that you probably want in the program might not be willing to travel or might have other constraints in their schedules that make it impossible. So, of course, there is something where you say, this is an ideal fit for technology. We can use video conferencing. We can use high-definition video to introduce a problem, a case perhaps, then have a half-an-hour pep talk or so by a professor, and she is actually in the U.S. and comes in from through the internet, through video conference, and then perhaps even have a continuous discussion on the blog or an online chat or so afterwards, and therefore ensure that there is engagement. On the other hand, you have the problem that John just described, namely that if you do that, then you have not taken the group out of their existing context. You have basically parachuted the US or the sort of school context into the target audience, and that might not be too conducive to learning. So if we go back to the quality question, is there a distinct element of quality in trying to get people out of their context? And if so, is that something that would point to an inherent weakness of using distance learning technology in the executive education context?
I thought that the cooperation for executive education was much easier than for the degree program. And I also thought that it was much easier to get highly reputable professors from well-known universities out to the countries where demand is than, of course, for the degree program. And it's much easier to get people out for a week. And you mentioned that maybe they will not be available. I think that surely within a relatively long period of time, normally it should be easy to find people who will be willing to travel and spend a week in India or in the Middle East or in any other region. The other point is that I don't think that getting candidates out of their context for a week will be of much value. If you think that you want to take them out of the context and provide them with better opportunities to learn, then it should be for a relatively long period of time, not for a week. I mean, if you take them out of the country for a week or 10 days and have them attend workshops at Harvard, I don't think that's going to be really of much. It's as if they stayed at home. From my own experience, it seems that in most cases, people who are interested in executive education like the training to be done at home. And at least from my own experience in the Middle East, most ministries in different countries are very much interested in organizing workshops, training workshops in their own ministries, rather than sending their employees abroad. And they don't think that there is a high value in doing that. As a matter of fact, it can have the opposite effect. You go for a week or 10 days to Cambridge or London or Paris, you are going to be more interested in finding out the places and going out, and so it's going to be probably much less serious than if you stay in the country itself. But I think that the challenge, maybe we'll go back to this, the challenge lies in in finding ways of cooperation in the master's program. Maybe we didn't spend enough time on it. Maybe we'll go back to it, but I don't want to interrupt the discussion on executive education.
Our program has what we call alumni seminar, and this is held once a year. As I said earlier, we would like to maintain our interaction with alumni. So we set up a video conferencing framework with Beijing, Manila, Hanoi, and Jakarta, and Tokyo. And the choice of the venues is dependent on the availability of Japanese aid agencies' video conferencing facility. And such a facility is not available everywhere. And our students are coming from more than these 5 countries, but this is sort of the limit we have to face. And we conduct like 3-4 hour discussion with a particular topic, like surging inflation. And each country alumni does some presentation. We take turns, have discussions. And this is, I think, it's not easy. There's slight time lag, which is always awkward. But still, you can conduct a reasonably fruitful discussion. Although, if you are to do this for many days on end, like a week long executive program or something, that may become really tedious. Separately, we have an executive training program. This is twice a year. Each one lasts 2 weeks. And it has all sorts of modules, basically a series of lectures. And I don't see any problem in sharing some of the modules if other schools are interested. Say, if we have a particular module on Japanese experience on bank restructuring or something, and if other schools are interested in particular lecturer's topic on that specific, particular lecturer's talk on that specific topic, I think we are videotaping it or DVDing it. So if others are interested, I think we can share it without any problem.
Let me say something that links together the executive education discussion and the earlier one that John was addressing about quality and about degrees, because I think there are real connections here. There are perils to both models of executive training. We happen to be sitting in a room that is the venue and has been for the last 3 summers for a training program that Sciences Po, LSE, and Columbia do for the Chinese government. And it's about a 3-month program. Patrick has taught in it, as have others who are at this conference. And the perils of keeping people on their home ground is everyone's on the cell phone, everyone has a lot of responsibilities, they're still connected to the office, they're not fully engaging. There are, as you pointed out, our colleague from Dubai, there are perils also when you bring people abroad. There's the kind of the sightseeing factor, the free trip factor. But there's a great advantage to taking people somewhat suddenly out of their context and forcing them to interact in a different kind of atmosphere. Places like New York and great global cities have a particular advantage there because you're offering people more than just what happens in the classroom. The real connection, though, with quality that I think we mustn't forget, and that is not. I just want to suggest that we've set up some dichotomies that are not necessarily dichotomies. Remember always that dual degree programs are always bilateral, so you have quality control built into that. No one, at Columbia or at LSE, you're not going to give your brand name away, except in a dual degree program in a way that's very fundamental, and you can control for quality. When we had started the network, again, there were discussions about how broad to make the dual degree structure. No one wanted to have 50, 30, 20, even 10 dual degrees. It's too much for any institution to manage. So those relationships will always be bilateral. We need to think of what the multilateral activities and goods are, and a lot of those needn't be things that where there's a free rider problem. We need to define very clearly what we want to share, but This needs to be part of our identity. As you said, the word public, about sharing ideas and disseminating ideas, but we're not giving away our degrees and we're not diluting our brand by doing that.
Well, what I'd like to bring another issue to topic. I mean, another issue for discussion. Well, I'll start with executive education. With experiencing, I mean, I think every country experiencing the same problems: cell phone problems, free rider problems. But let us look at it at a more conceptual level. Like in Kazakhstan, we've been running some executive programs for mid and top level civil servants. Same problem: cell phone, office connections, and things like that. But the main problem was and Mr. Lewis has brought this issue actually earlier, is the certain gap, this connection between the public policy, I mean, I'm talking about the intellectuals who are teaching and engaging in science of public policy, and the people in power. I'm talking about administrative officers. I mean, they do not believe, they see the public policy as, a pure science, a theoretical implications of, but they do not really follow. So there's a certain gap between the real politics and public policy as science, academic environment. And we experience it, maybe it's linked to our legacy, the Soviet Union legacy, where, the real politics was really very disconnected from the intellectual society, community, from intellectual community. But how do you deal with this kind of problem? Because what we're seeing in our executive education programs is that as top civil servants, they sometimes do not take anything for serious, like, well, what on earth can you teach me? And they see it mostly as a vacation, to disrupt from their everyday ordinary duties, just to come to have some vacation chat, talk, dinner out. And they don't, this is one of the problems I'd like to. And the second issue I'd like to tackle is the education. When we're talking about the public policy education, we always, we say there's equality, there's always issues. But there's one issue is the values. How do we, because these are civil servants. You see, it's the particular thing about the public education in Kazakhstan. But our academy, our public policy school is for civil servants only. So one of the main our main tasks is not only provide them with quality public policy education and policy analysis skills, but also instill some values particular to civil service, which is honesty, integrity, meritocracy, etc., etc. So how do you deal with this side, which is very important side of education too, trying to, and you raised this very important issue, is the ability to share information, network, and teamwork. Because what we've seen is, again, the bad legacy of Soviet Union, that the best skills, management skill, is to divide et impera, right? Divide and rule, not network, share, and teamwork. So how do you, and this was becoming a very big issue for us, how do you not only give them good education, but also try to instill some values to our students, so when they go out, these graduates would be the backbone that would bring new wave of views and methods of management to public service.
I'm maybe actually going just back on executive education, because it seems to me the discussion so far is really focusing on executive education on short courses. But the same way the business school started with the MBA and then short courses for top people, now they have executive MBA. So I think in our school we actually have launched an executive master, which is actually, we just discovered that people at that level, they want to basically just add a line on the CV, and just a short course on top of 10 other short courses is not going to make a difference. So what they want is the degree granting program for executive education. Now if you think of that, then the technology is very important, because these people, to get them out of where they come from for 9 months is impossible. So there, in most of these programs, you have intensive modules, whatever, in Geneva, let's say, and then in the meantime, they do work online. So I think here there's no way, at least when we think of, let's say, we have actually a captive audience of diplomats who have been working in international organizations, because, we have a clear locational advantage. But these people, they're never going to be able to spend, or very few of them, very long period of time in Geneva, either for cost reason, as you were mentioning, speaking of cost of life in Geneva, or simply because of their busy agenda. So I think there, in that sense, they're combining location advantage, because they have to come to Geneva to see how the UN work, or the ILO, or the WTO. So there's no way we can just simulate that in another parts of the world. But they cannot spend so much time. So I think there, combining technology and locational advantage, I don't see any other choice. Short courses are different because it's 1 week. But even there, we hear different things. Some governments, they really want us to design open environment courses. I think there's tendency in India right now. And they want to send their people, if they, on trade, they just want to come to Geneva because the WTO are there, or meet, people of the Indian mission, or some people won't be, do that in their capital city. I don't think there is every general rule, but I just wanted to be making a difference between very short courses and then things that could be degree granting. And there, seems to me that even it's quality enhancing, because we discovered that people have very different background. So if they come for 1 week in Geneva, by having some kind of preparation before they come in town is very useful. Otherwise, we're going to face with huge problem when they're in town for only a short period of time.
That's a very interesting point, that those hybrid programs that are not necessarily immersive and long-term, but at the same time are degree granting, and therefore technology can play a role. Susan, you wanted to refocus a little bit our discussion?
Yes, I had a couple of thoughts and points that have occurred to me in listening to the discussion. One just early comment is that the University of Michigan, as a public university, has been spending a lot of time recently, and I think this is true more generally of public universities in the United States, of trying to understand what the mission of being public means in an increasingly global environment. And that is something that the administration, the deans, take very seriously there. It's something that we're grappling with. The dean of our libraries is actually working actively on a lot of technology issues, very much driven by that sense of the importance of trying to share information. But in that context, to come back to our discussion here, it does seem to me that there are a broader number of ways in which, perhaps for executive education, in our context, I think more in the degree case, that there are other ways to use technology that are enhancing and don't have to be as competitive. And in that case, I would wonder whether there are ways to explore more, including practitioners and practitioner perspectives in our programs in ways that would actually add value to whatever's happening in our own programs. It's not necessarily competitive, but is more along the lines of what the gentleman over there said about sharing some of the kinds of lectures and topics. I wonder if any of the people here have had experiences with how well that works, but it strikes me that there could be very interesting network perspectives that look at similar policy topics from different country, culture, historical perspectives, and really actually help us to understand the policy issues and perhaps generate research as well as helping teaching.
Thank you very much. I'll pass the microphone on to Donna for a second, because Donna mentioned early on in our discussion the availability of public lectures at Princeton, and there are numerous practitioners of public policy coming and speaking at Princeton. So that would be a resource, almost an immediate resource for what Susan just asked us to provide as a network, perhaps. But the question that I have for Donna in particular is, how would we identify the needle in the haystack? That is, there are hundreds probably of lectures online. How do we identify, if I am a teacher either in an executive or in a degree program at any public policy school, how would I identify the 5 minutes or the 10 minutes out of those hours and hours of video that I should show my classroom in order to make that salient point? So my question is, what do you do in terms of tagging, information sorting, categorization, and so forth? Tough question.
Well, without going into the entire Web 2.0 lecture, which I prepared for other audiences, I think essentially what we have with the instant publishing world and the Web 2.0 world is tremendous opportunity for voices that were not heard before to be heard. Publishing has become cost accessible to everyone, technologically more and more accessible to more people, but again, you have an inverted pyramid where you used to have the publishers at the point of the pyramid, the consumers at the bottom. Now you have the publishers very, very numerous at the top of the pyramid, and the consumers, with such a tremendous demand on their attention, are becoming more and more focused and will only visit the top 10 sites, say. So part of what we've done was, quite frankly, bank on the reputation of the schools to create a collection which has quality already branded on it, so that if people are looking for public affairs lectures from, and we really do hope to internationalize this as much as possible, but who are looking for public affairs lectures from schools that have already vetted their speakers, so that you kind of, weed out the publicity hounds, or, you have already a selection process that incorporates all the best aspects of academic peer review and solid research. That is part of the selection process, and people know when they come to those lectures that they're not wasting their time, because we do ask, our lectures are presented uncut, so we do ask for an hour at least of their attention. So I think a lot of it has to do with, we're not tossing out the old hierarchy, but the web imposes upon us a new ecology of knowledge and relevance and priority. And you have to be aware that in order to ride that to the top of the Google search engine, you need to be associated with organizations that have already proven their value in the public space. So, for example, everyone wants to know about the financial crisis. They're struggling, the general public is sort of struggling to understand it. A panel of economists from Princeton, who had been discussing this over lunch every day, decided they might as well just take their discussion, put it in front of a camera, in front of an audience, and share it. Share their thoughts, their analysis, their knowledge of the history of the financial crisis. We published the lecture as an audio-video file. We put it up on YouTube. We made it available through iTunes U. And within a week, we had about 55,000 people watching the video. There were several things involved there. One is that it's a topic that everybody wanted to know about. The other is a topic that the people who were presenting had a great deal of expertise in, and they were presenting their research really quite honestly, I think, without agenda, and even being quite candid about the mistakes they themselves had made in the past. But then the other thing is the leveraging of the media, the new media platforms, where the audience already is, and they are looking. Now, you may turn your nose up at YouTube, but the fact is that people who go on YouTube are looking for all kinds of things. There are classical music fanatics who go on YouTube to find concerts. There are, it's not just about the cat tricks. And so if you are looking for signs of intelligent life on YouTube, it really behooves us to have something there, to have content there to contribute our value to those kinds of public platforms. So that was our experience.
Let me push back a little bit, though. The information selection question, though, if you have hundreds and hundreds of hours, if I'd like to use a snippet out of that discussion of the 4 or whatever economists, then I only like to have 5 or 10 minutes to show in my classroom, maybe those that are most salient. How would I find those other than watching hours and hours of videos and then make that selection?
Well, this is where Web 2.0 has transferred a lot of the burden of selection onto the consumer. When we used to rely on large publication houses to do the selecting for us, to choose our priorities for us, and in fact, mass media in many ways failed in that respect and started to trivialize the news. But now the burden has shifted to the consumer, so the consumer does have to sift through hours and hours. And we've looked at, we should have dinner. I could delve into the technology if you want, but in fact it boils down to many man-hours. And people will be looking for different things, so you can't satisfy everyone by doing their choices for them.
Thank you very much for the honest answer, because that it's a lot of work at the end of the day. Let me tell you about a project that I did in my classroom. A couple of years back, actually 7 years back, it's hard to believe, I went to my class on information technology policy or internet policy and said, I'd like you to form small teams of 2, go out, find a leading person who played an important role on the trajectory of internet policy over the last 20 years. Find that person, research that person, come up with good questions, sit down with that person and do a videotaped interview. Here you have a small camera. Go out and do it. We had a little bit of money available for travel. And they went out and did it. Came back with the footage. And we then edited it on my office computer and took an hour and a half or so of interview time, cut it down to about 15, 20 minutes, based on what my student thought, individual team thought that were the salient points. And then we produced a DVD and put it in the public domain. Sort of leading thinkers of the internet generation thinking about their past and the future. And that was the theme. And we added more to it. The interesting thing is that the snippets are great. Like the 15 minutes, I can use them a lot in my courses. But to get to the 15 minutes took an awful lot of time, both on my student side, and that was a little bit of outsourcing of work, I have to be honest, but also on my end, because I sifted through each and every minute of the original footage and had to make the decision of what to include and what not to include. So some I think we can outsource, some I think we can use technology to help us, but at the end of the day I think there is also a lot of relatively hard labor waiting for us when it comes to that. Can I slightly shift the discussion into a direction that we already are sort of veering into, and that is, could I challenge you to tell the audience, tell everybody about innovative ways by which you have used technologies in your context, particularly as it pertains to the themes that we've brought up in the discussion so far. I think Donna's example is a fabulous example. Do you have any that you would like to present, or do you have challenges of what we ought to do, what you think would be fun to have? And maybe there is somebody in the audience that might say, yes, let's do that.
Well, I'll just elaborate on something that I mentioned earlier, which is I teach a comparative policy process and comparative public management classes. I never have enough time to cover the material in class. So what I have been doing the last year is moving all of my lectures to PowerPoint. You can attach audio to each PowerPoint slide. The students can listen to the lecture before they come to class. I begin the class saying, any questions on the lecture? We have discussion on that, and then we then have most of the time in the class to discuss the readings, which we never had time to do before because I was rushing to go through the lectures. It's very easy to do. Takes 10 minutes to learn, and it's an enormous investment of time up front because it turns out not to be as easy to talk into a microphone to do a lecture as it is to talk to a class. But since once you've done it, if you're talking about path dependence, it doesn't change that much from year to year. So you can change the slides that you need to change, don't change the slides that you don't need to change, and it saves you a lot of time in years 2, 3, 4, 5.
What was the experience students had with this? Do you know?
Yeah, the students really like it, and I'll tell you, the foreign students especially are so appreciative because particularly students, whose first language is not English, and they have been here for a month or something like that. Sometimes they get together, listen to it together. If one of them doesn't understand something that I said, the other one may, and they can do it that way. I try to liven it up with visual stuff, editorial cartoons, that sort of thing on the slides to make it more visually interesting. And I make that my slides are not the way you're supposed to do PowerPoint. They're more, there's more content on the slide so that they're hearing and seeing a lot of the text of what I'm saying on the slide. It's not a written out lecture, but it's a little more than you get on a PowerPoint slide. And it's worked very well.
I think that's an excellent idea because we never have time to do any of the supplementary readings. We sometimes barely have time to look at the PowerPoint before we come to the lecture because there are so many submissions, there are so many projects, group projects. So if you could have a PowerPoint with an audio, the classes could be more meaningful because a lot of students, especially in Asia, their first language is not English and they actually struggle. They always have a dictionary, electronic dictionary with them. And if you could have lectures where you have a PowerPoint along with an audio, it would really make the discussions in the class more meaningful. Because a lot of time in the classes just go looking at the PowerPoint slides, and we really never ever do any supplementary reading. There just is never enough time for it.
I wanted to shift the discussion a little bit to some of the challenges. And one of our greatest challenges is the digital divide. So if you get all these great statistics back about who's watching and who's downloading and everything, and Africa is dark, and it's a bandwidth and technology issue. And I think that one of the things that really has to be addressed on the policy level is IT policy, and not even the United States has devoted much attention to that in the sense that broadband is completely private enterprise, and the idea of public broadband is almost radical and has a long way to go. But in countries where these systems are only just beginning to be built, I would urge the schools certainly to include that in their kind of menu of policy issues that are being discussed, including a literacy, a technological literacy, so that people understand that if we are going to leverage these information tools, that they have to be deployed in a way that works.
Thank you. I used a tool that was originally developed at the Berkman Center at Harvard once before, called the digital rotisserie in one of my classrooms. That is another challenge kind of story. What it does is students submit short papers, and then these short papers are digitally assigned or electronically assigned to some other student in the class to comment on. And then they submit a comment of reflection on the original paper. I used that, and it was a superb success. I added a little bit of a component in that the students had to submit the original papers 6 o'clock 2 days before class, and the response, the one-page response, was due the day before class, 6 o'clock. And I would guarantee that I would have looked at the papers by the time class would start and had sort of planned my class and adjusted my class accordingly. Now, the upside is the students absolutely loved it. I forced them to do 8 papers in 8 papers and 8 responses, short responses, over the course of the semester. They came to me and said, "Can we do more?" was the only class that I ever taught where students wanted more work. And I said, sure, and I'll grade them and so forth. The downside, and there's the challenge side, is I spent enormous amounts of time reading these papers. This was a class of about 35 people. You do the math. Over 500 submissions to be read and graded. Every time in a time-pressured circumstance. So again, the technology helps to include and to foster the deliberation there and the discussion, but it also, of course, does not erase the bottleneck of the human to look at the information and to make sense of that. So that was my personal challenge. Any more challenge stories, technology challenge stories? Ken?
Especially dealing with Africa. And one of the good things about using PowerPoint is you can get around the digital divide. You can put these on DVDs and give them to the students. And they still have to have a PC with a DVD reader, but that's a lot more common than access to bandwidth in developing countries.
And that could also be used in an executive context, where you then send the DVDs to the people and so forth. Was there a quick hand up here? Otherwise, I'd like to wrap it up because it is shortly after 11, and for once I'd like to be on time. Patrick is giving me the hands up there. Thanks very much for a stimulating and very encouraging discussion, and I hope we can continue it offline past that lecture hall. Thank you.